5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
There I am. You know, I was there somewhere. I was just hiding. I've got to say, I'm actually hiding underneath the desk because we have got LTID's version of WWE tonight. In the blue corner and saying that we should be playing dice ball is Ant. And in the red corner, saying Ant's talking a load of bollocks, is Manny. Hopefully, by the end of the show, we'll have decided one way or the other. Manny's done his homework, and I think he's just going to fly it as we go through. But yeah, this is City Chat. It is Project Reset. It's how do we choose our new manager? If indeed, of course, we're going to have a new manager. Sky have come out and said, you know, they're not sure the club's going to stick with Ruud. Has he got a thing in his contract, a clause that says if once we get relegated, we can let him go cheaper? Is he going to be here till the end of the season if we get relegated? Because we could get relegated against Liverpool. Or do you want him here next season? Let us know your thoughts in the chat. And if you're listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very much for lending me your ears. We'll get the guys in and we'll have a chat. And it's ding ding, round one. Good evening, Manny. Good evening, Ant.
Good evening.
Evening, mate.
I'm not going to put you that way around because it works well with my questions. I don't know, I've only just seen this actually. I just clicked on Sky Sports. Actually, have you seen the news about Leicester?
No.
We have apparently been linked with a new manager because Ruud has been sacked.
Has he actually been sacked?
Well, look, the new manager's there. Look.
Is this a line now?
I actually believed you then for a second as well.
Well, he's saying that Ruud Van Nistelrooy is a muppet.
Come on, you.
I can't even believe I had that for a second of believing you.
Got it. Oh, this is going to be one-way traffic for you, Manny. You meet tonight.
Is this how it's going to be?
I think this is how it's going to be. Yeah. Look, first question very quickly is, should Ruud still be here at the end of the season, or should he go if, as likely, we lose to Liverpool on Sunday, and that will get us relegated? And first of all,
for me, I think we're as good as down now, so I would like to see him take it to the end of the season, because what I don't want to happen is a new manager come in, struggle for the back end of the Premier League with a squad that's not his, and already have the fans on his back before the start of the new season. So if I don't want him here next year, whether it's Andy King takes over till the end of the season or whether it's Ruud. Whoever it is, I don't want it to be the new manager for next season.
Manny, they had 2 weeks over the international break when I thought they might have taken some action. Surely, although you never know with this club, during that 2 weeks that they would have maybe started to look.
There's no point in sacking him. What difference does it make? What is the purpose of giving a manager 6 games? Who's going to take it for 6 games of any note? If you try, it's no kind of permanent manager would do it. You have limited options with 6 games to go. It's pretty much whoever just happens to be available. And if you're available at this stage, you're available for a reason. You're probably not great. Give yourself to the summer. It's cheaper as well. There's no point in sacking Ruud, paying him off, and then paying another salary to the next manager, plus whatever backroom staff in addition you would have to change. So Ruud's here to the end of the season. We actually saw at the weekend, it's not total doom and gloom. We scored more than one for at least half an hour of the game, and at parts longer. We actually looked pretty good. So there's no point in getting Ruud right now. We just have to stick it out to the end.
Prashant, I don't know, because I know Manny is going to watch the game later. Do you want updates on the Champions League matches, Manny?
I've got it on in the background anyway, so I'll hear it before. I'll see it before then.
Go on then, Prashant. Keep me updated, because I need the 3 points in the prediction league. So keep me updated with who's playing tonight.
Newcastle are 4-0 up against Palace at halftime. 4-0
You're
up.
joking?
Nope.
Fucking hell, there's my 2-2 out the window.
Jacob Murphy, Mark Gay, own goal, Harvey Barnes and Fabian Shaw. Looks like they scored 3 goals in the last 10 minutes of that half. So
Bugger.
They're on it at the moment. Newcastle, that wave of having won that cup, they're just feeling it at the moment, aren't they?
They are. On Sky Sports, Van Nistelrooy's Leicester future uncertain. Both club and manager are undecided about whether they want the relationship to continue into the next season. So Sky Sports News has been told that impromptu discussions were held soon after the hugely disappointing 3-0 defeat to Newcastle. But on reflection, both sides felt it best that Van Nistelrooy should continue in his role for the time being. This was early this week on Sky Sports' Rob Dorset. And just come out and say, if you're going to keep him till the end of the season, just come out and say that we are.
Thing is, as much as you'd love that, they're never going to come out and say, yeah, we're going to sack him at the moment the season's finished. It's like, I'd be amazed if he's...
You have to say that, but you can say he's our man till the end of the season, then we will have a look at it.
Yeah, that's basically what they have said, isn't it, in other words?
Yeah,
It's what Ruud himself has pretty much said. It's all about the club. It's about the players. It's not about me. They're all hinting at the same thing. We can read between the lines. Do we really need, the famous backing of the chairman? I mean, that always gets interpreted the other way anyway. So you can't win if you put a statement out, and you can't win if you don't.
No, that's fair point. Manny, I'll come to you first. Do you like a swallow?
Careful, Chris. It's a public forum. Keep it clean. There might be kids watching.
It's before the watershed. No, I mean the bird, because it was a good game. I mean, the guy Alan who does my man of the match and performance ratings goes to all the matches. He said it was our best performance of the season. Did that point change any thoughts you had on Ruud van Nistelrooy?
I mean, it showed me that he's flexible enough to, eventually keep changing until he finds something he likes. So he's not super stubborn. He could have just said, look, we made the change to 5 at the back and we're sticking with that till the end of the season, whatever the results are. So he was willing to try something. It didn't work. He was willing to try something again. It did work. I prefer you get it right the first time myself, because that's the way you've been brought in to play. And from my position, from what I saw, it just felt like he reverted back to Enzo's style of play. And that's a large part of the reason why we did look a lot better, in my opinion.
Yeah. There is Ant's details, by the way, that he's doing for prostate cancer, a mud run or something. He'll give us more details at the end, but the link is there. Do go along and support him. Let's face it, we all want to see Ant covered in mud, don't we? I don't know how you watched it, if you watched it, what you did, Ant. I mean, it was a good performance, but one swallow doesn't make a summer, does it?
No, it's I would say 4 months too late, to be honest. It's like one half decent performance in what, 15 games?
Yeah.
So if that's enough to convince some people, then their standards are absolutely on the floor for what they expect.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at this, Manny. This is the next manager to leave odds. And you'd be not be surprised to see that Ruud van Nistelrooy is evens. And of course, we do say whenever we mention odds that it's not the answer to betting is not the answer to any money problems. And when the fun stops, do stop. No manager to leave is 2-1. Angie's 3-1. Enzo, believe it or not, is in there at fourth at 20-1. That's not surprising, is it? Really?
I'm surprised that. Well, I mean, Enzo leaving or the others?
With Ruud, sorry. Ruud is even.
Of course,
Yeah.
with Ruud. Like, I mean, we've lost, 16 out of our last 18 games or whatever it is. I mean, if that doesn't get you the sack, then what does? Of course, he's going to get the sack. I suspect it's just a case of waiting for that relegation to be confirmed so that you get a cheaper payout, basically, once that is the case. So I'm sure that when they negotiated the contract, obviously relegation was already on the cards, and they said, look, if you do stay up, you get a bonus. If you take us down, you pay off your 3-year contract or whatever it is. We'll pay half of it before we, when we let you go.
Yeah.
So it's just a money thing. There's nothing else to it.
Yeah. I mean, and I was just on with Manny on Lox's channel, Blue Tinted Glasses. Do go and check it out, guys. And we were talking about where the problems were at the club and what have you. And I actually said this on that show. Keep, sack, employ. We've had 11 managers in 15 years under King Power. Do you trust these two to make the right choice when they can't even agree between themselves? John Rudkin, apparently Steve Cooper was John Rudkin's choice. Top came out and said, I didn't want him, he wasn't my choice. Well, it's your bloody club, mate. Go up there and put your foot down. And he then chose Ruud van Nistelrooy and the rest, as they say. I mean, do you trust these two, Ant?
Thing is, the recent appointments haven't been great, but you look before that, I think we got a lot very bang on for the period of, when Claude Puel came in after Shakespeare. It wasn't a popular appointment, but it was an appointment that I think that was needed in terms of transitioning us the style of football that we play, and also a lot of the old guard that were obviously rightly loved needed to be moved on. But then the appointment of Brendan Rodgers after that was brilliant. I think Enzo as well, very good appointment. But it's the ones after that that for me is where I trust struggles. Steve Cooper, it was the easy option. I think it was the option that they didn't get Graham Potter, who they wanted. I think was the first choice, and they just, I think they were almost a little bit embarrassed of, was it third time with Graham Potter, didn't get him, just go and get Steve Cooper. And then Van Nistelrooy, for me, he was only brought in because of locker room pressure and fan pressure. I'm convinced that's the reason Cooper was sacked.
But if you are an owner of a club or any business, you don't bow to peer pressure, do you? You make the decision that you think. And if Cooper wasn't the choice of Top, why the hell was he given the job and a 3-year contract?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, because sometimes an owner isn't himself a football expert, doesn't have the required football acumen to make an appropriate decision. He might love the game, he might watch a lot of the game, but he's not watching lots of different European leagues, paying attention to the Championship, watching other clubs play football. He's got a multi-billion-dollar empire to run. He's got other things to do than spend his evening watching endless matches of football like us saddos do. So I think sometimes you will employ somebody who you give that trust in and say that this guy is the guy I trust to make that decision, and it's his job to make that decision, and let's hope he gets it right. The difficulty I have is, look, John Rudkin gets a lot of criticism and a lot of hate as well, but during his tenure, we have, like Ant pointed out, we have appointed some progressive good managers, such as Brendan, such as Enzo, Puel wasn't horrific. Puel did some good things, particularly in the background and recruitment. Look at the players we signed under Claude Puel, by the way.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, good things that he did bring to the club, and he did facilitate the change in style from a counter-attacking team to a possession-based team, which Brendan then evolved onwards. So I think the question I have is, in recent times, since Top's been chairman, we'd say Brendan appointment was linked before that era. It was linked under Vichai as well. I think he's been linked in the past. I know from what I read that Vichai was particularly keen on Brendan. So that one, it seems like an easy selection because you've already done your due diligence. You already know that your dad approved him. You know your dad has a great record with picking managers. It seems an easy win. And it was. Good appointment. So then you look at it after that and you go to Dean Smith. It feels like the managerial merry-go-round. Who's available right now late in the season? Dean Smith is probably all that was available at the time. Then you have the summer to actually choose. Who do you want? You have some time. Who do I come up with? How do they play? What can we give them? What tools will we lose? What tools can we bring in? And somehow, some way, they got to Enzo with Rudkin in charge, with Top in charge. So I'd love to know how they came to that decision and why that decision process was so different. How you can go from one extreme of Enzo to something very different in Cooper inside 12 months. That's the questions I have. How do you get to one decision and then get to a completely different decision? In my opinion, it would just be plan A is working pretty damn well. Let's just continue with plan A. So if Enzo goes, we just plug Enzo out, plug someone who plays identically, plug him in, and we're good to go. That would seem to me be the obvious logical decision. But we went down this managerial safety, apparent safety route, which, then created its own problems because you're now giving that manager money to spend. So he buys players that his style suits, not necessarily the club style at the time, which was Enzo Ball suited. So I think we started getting mixed messages to the players, and that lack of continuity definitely cost us.
Craig, no, you can't apply for the Leicester City job because you just bring Gary O'Neill in with you. A Bournemouth fan and Gary O'Neill lover there, Craig. Look, there's the list of managers that we've had since King Power have been in. It averages out to a new manager every 490 days, 1.34 years or 16.09 months. I know we've got a couple in there that have been longer, and one of those left of his own accord. But it still isn't a good record, is it?
It's not. But there's a lot. And I hate comparing us to other clubs. There's a lot of other clubs that have got much worse ones.
I think we're about 4 managers behind Chelsea. Yeah. We're 11 managers behind Watford, in fairness.
What's the lowest league position any of those managers finished in under King Power?
There you go. Funny you should ask that, because there it is.
Receive.
Indeed. I don't waste my afternoons. Paulo Sousa was 24th out of 24, so yeah, I get him going. Ericsson was only 13th out of 24. Nigel Pearson a little bit different because he'd finished 14th and then he was sacked between seasons. Ranieri was 17th. Shakespeare was 18th. See, Puel we were sat in 12th position. Rogers 19th. Dean Smith 18th. And obviously, like I say, Enzo left. And of course, with Steve Cooper, we are sat in. I've put 15th there. Sorry, I've mistyped that. That should have been 18th. So some of them you could argue, yeah, we weren't in a good position when we sacked them, Manny. But look at Craig Shakespeare. I mean, he didn't actually have long. If you look at when he was with us, he was February 17th to October 17th. How can a manager just be given that much time and be expected to turn things round?
Did beat Sevilla at home in first game of the Champions League.
Yeah,
that was
I agree.
We won our first. Didn't we win our first 4 or 5 games under Shakespeare? I think.
Mm.
So
to me, this is where King Power are getting it wrong, because we took too long to sack Brendan Rodgers. You could argue we've taken too long to sack Ruud van Nistelrooy. And yet, the likes of, did we sack Puel too soon? Did we sack Shakespeare too soon? You know, we never seem to sort of get it right. Now, you could argue that, well, it's not top, he doesn't know football, etc. But he should be employing people. We hear what a great businesswoman Susan Whelan is. John Rudkin stood by him through everything and he trusts him. But whoever you're blaming, it isn't a good record, is it?
I think one thing to know about that list is that it's not often that we make two mistakes in a row. So if you look at them, we make a mistake, it gets rectified. So if we, apart from the initial two, we had Sven in, we rectified with Pearson. Ranieri, we got two right in a row. Shakespeare, no problem, that's fine. Puel wasn't really that much of a backwards step, but it would maybe a little bit. We went forward with Brendan. We went backwards with Dean Smith a tiny bit, you could argue. Maybe not so much. Forward with Enzo, but now we've had two in a row where it's gone back and back. So the question mark becomes more of, it's spotlighted more. How do we find these managers? What is the consistent element amongst this range of managers that King Power itself says, this is the way we would like our team to play, and these are the managers we have playing that way? I think that element is largely missing. And I think because we've got such a big decision coming up, we really need to focus on our style of play and why that we've got that style. And then we need to do, like, every single team at Leicester, every under 16, under 14, under 8s, whatever it is, everybody gets trained to play the same way. So that when you get a Jeremy Monger and these other players at 15, 16, they've only known this way, that the club plays this way all the time.
Which, in fairness, is what Enzo was putting in place, wasn't he?
Barcelona's been doing it for 45, 50 years. Real Madrid do it all the time. All the mega clubs will do it that way. Everybody is used to it. That's why you get a Lionel Messi stepping up from your internal teams. Hey, they produce some unbelievable players from within. Look at Barcelona's academy has been doing it for 3-4 decades. So we could do our own little version of that. We have the tools in Seagrave. We have the pitches. We have the facilities. We can have the money and the coaches to do it. And historically, Leicester, along with teams like Southampton, have produced some pretty damn decent homegrown talent. If you think of Chilwell, Barnes, that's already some pretty decent ones. But over the years, plenty more, going back to the days of Julian Joachim. So look at this latest crop that we have. Yeah. They are England under 17 captain. We've got England under 17 regulars, stars of the junior teams. So there's some good youth coming out there. And I think that's, therefore you want a manager who is likely to develop this youth, right? There's no point in having great kids if the manager isn't going to bother integrating them into the first team. Even Fergie realised that there was a time where the old guard have to go and you have to start again. So I think this is a natural position to hit an actual full reset button and say, who are we? What are we trying to do? Why are we trying to do it that way in particular? Does that actually make sense for us? Then can we have the right coaching staff? It's less about having a manager these days. It's more about having a coach who's going to coach the players that you give them.
Indeed. What will you stop talking sense, Manny? I just nobody dare clip that, but I can't do with it.
I mean, a large part of this, maybe this is a good time to get into it. Ant doesn't know, but I've written a few notes today, Ant. So, respect to you, I actually wrote notes for you today. But it's mostly because if you want to have these questions in your mind, then I think you have to have football acumen. And if you want football acumen, you have to understand the history and the evolution of the game. So I'm going to try and run down sort of 60, 70 years of football in a few minutes, if that's all right.
Can you do that when we come on to it?
Okay, no problems. We'll save it for later.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I've got it here, and it's a great piece, and I want to save it until we're talking that. Just come to you, Ant, and I'm not saying that some of those have been bad choices. I'm just saying the timing of the sacking has been bad.
Yeah, some of them have. I think Vichai was always much more ruthless in getting rid of managers a lot more quickly. I also think Claude Puel probably he stayed a lot longer than he would have if the tragedy didn't happen, because I felt before it happened he was very much on the edge, but then as soon as the tragedy happened, he was nothing but class. And I think obviously there was bigger things going on around the football club than a manager being sacked at the time. So, but in terms of Brendan Rodgers, that went on way too long because Brendan Rodgers should have gone at the same point that Steven Gerrard went at Villa, and they brought in Unai Emery, and last night they had PSG on the ropes, and it's like you look at the sort of different trajectories of the two clubs. Dean Smith came in, wasn't he? Dean Smith was basically, as Manny said, it was all that was available at the time. So I think there's been a line of we've almost stopped being ruthless under top.
Yeah, Craig, I think you mean Lee, and that unless that's his lesser known German brother that's managing Borussia or somebody like that. Look, I want to go then on to the point that obviously the main point of the show is that how do we look at how we appoint the next manager? And this is where, like I say, last week with Manny on Loxy's show, I'm sat there. I'm having to defend your choice and of Sean Dyche, and even worse, I had to defend Craig's choice of Gareth Southgate. I felt I was very much the patsy there, with me taking all the hassle when neither of them were actually my choice. Although I could see your argument for Sean Dyche, but do we go to the same old list of names of failed managers that are linked to every vacancy, like the Coopers, like the Dyche, and we'll go through that with you, Ant, and then we'll look at plan B. Yes, we have a plan B tonight, folks. Have a plan, decide on the style of football we want to play, get a manager in who fits the bill, get players in that will fit into his style of play, but have his successor lined up to play the same way if he leaves. So, like, we should have had somebody in mind when Enzo left, that could have carried that on rather than going out and getting a Cooper who obviously, it was totally the opposite. So, hit us with it. Plan A, and we'll look at the list in the second. Same old, new manager, different style, same results. And you've got probably three of your favourites there: Michael Carrick, Gareth Southgate, and Steven Gerrard.
Be disappointed if we went for any of them. But I do think, when you say about play style and stuff, and Manny mentioned it earlier, whether it's Sean Dyche, whether it's whoever the manager is, whether it's Russell Martin or whoever comes in, they need their play style with the first team needs to be what's built. The club is built around. So if you're going to play like Sean Dyche's style of football, then that is what needs to be taught from the academy levels up. Yeah. Same if it's Russell Martin, because then obviously the succession plan of whoever. So if Sean Dyche was to come in and leave or get sacked, then you want it to be a nice, easy transition to the next person. What we can't have is say Russell Martin comes in, then halfway through the season we decide we want Sean Dyche. It needs to be a complete reset from the bottom up. So I do think just saying sort of like acting as if Sean Dyche isn't having a play style is a bit sort of brushing him to the side. I also think his play style gets a bit of an unfair reputation. And I said this before we went live, because when you look at his track record in the Championship, his teams have always been on the front foot, always been high scoring teams. He's just in the Premier League. He's always been at clubs where he hasn't had the best of resources. And he was very, very successful at Burnley for a team that were by far the smallest budget for a long time.
Should we, sorry to interrupt, but should we, I know what you're saying, that he didn't have the budget necessarily at Burnley, but surely we have compared to Burnley, or we should have.
Potentially, but I also think that there's this obsession with playing like pretty football. And if you look at one of the one teams that aren't too obsessed with it in the Premier League, is Brentford, a team that plays to their team's strengths. And it's like at times they press up the pitch and they can be aggressive, but they also have that almost what I used to think of Sean Dyche's teams in the Premier League, where they can be incredibly hard to beat as well.
You've got to be hard to beat first, I suppose. Jessica there, as an Everton fan, the last person you need in charge is Dyche. So go on. Look, sell Dyche to us. He's there, fourth favourite at 8-1. Why should we give the job to Dyche?
Well, as I say, I think that he will. I think the play style stuff with him is a bit of a myth, to be honest. He's also like, and I did a bit of research before today as well. You look at his record for promoting youth and improving young players; it's actually very good. So, just this was off the top of my head earlier of some of the names that I wrote down. But he's either brought in as a young player or has come through the academies whilst he's there. Trippier, Tarkowski, Keane, Brathwaite, McNeil, Nick Pope, Ben Mee, Chris Wood, Danny Ings all came in under Sean Dyche and all developed massively and either improved massively and went on for big fees. So it's like, as much as I don't want us to be a selling club, I think we're realistic to the position of where we are at the moment. And so this idea that he just plays like the same sort of old team week in, week out, and like no one ever, apart from his best 11, no one gets a look in, is a bit of a myth for me. And I also think we need someone who's just not going to actually take a bit of just not take any bollocks, to be honest, because I think the player power at this club has got completely out of control, and he's one person that I think will absolutely get rid of that. So I think our recent managers particularly have been a bit of a soft touch apart from Enzo. And I feel like we need someone who's going to put their foot down and say they're in charge, not there to be the players' friends, but they're there to be the manager. And I think Enzo got that line absolutely right. But apart from that, I don't think any other manager has really.
Russell Martin 11-4, please God no.
Again, I wouldn't be against Russell Martin, but it's whoever it is, it's got to be fully brought into by the club from the top to the bottom.
Didn't he condemn Luton? Didn't he condemn Southampton? Is he going for a hat trick if he gets us back up? And it's like saying Daniel Farke. He can get a team up, but could he keep a team in the Premier League? Anybody on that list, though, Manny, and I say sticking with Plan A at the moment, but anybody on that list that you would look at, and I can probably guess the one you might go for if you had to pick one, that you would look at that and go, yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't say, I wouldn't be annoyed if.
There's two on that list I'd interview. Let's hear what he's got to say in person.
Can I guess which two they are? Because I think, and these are two that I would like as well, actually. Liam Rossigna and Danny Roll.
I'd give you one of those.
Yeah.
Danny Roll I would interview. Liam Rossigna, I think, is pointless because he's pushing for Champions League in Ligue 1 France. So I don't think there's any way in hell that in his current state, he is going to leave that club for our project. The second one I'd probably have a look at, just because the surname gives you access to who knows who, David Ancelotti. I have no idea if David Ancelotti would make a good manager or not. I know his dad is unbelievable. I know his dad would probably chuck him a few players like Alex Ferguson used to give to Darren Ferguson.
Exactly.
When he was at Peterborough. Here, have him on loan. We'll get some Real Madrid youngsters on loan who are like next gen. Maybe we'll get Endrick. Have you seen Endrick play, by the way? What's a player? We'll just have him on loan for the last 3 months of the season, let him stroll in. So, that's a sexy outlook for David Ancelotti, but I have no idea. Danny Roll I would look at because I know a little bit about him. I like his background, his age. Liam Rossigna would be on the list, but I just don't think that one's quite realistic.
I think the three that you've named there are probably the three that I would have said. I think with Ancelotti, his dad might not be at Real Madrid at the end of the season. So can you imagine
Brazil? His dad
or he could have David as manager and his dad Carlos as assistant manager. Now that would be a dream team, wouldn't it?
Brazil national team or Leicester City in the Championship? It's a tough choice. I don't know.
I know. Life is full of these tough decisions. But at least we'd then be able to say that we played like Brazil.
Absolutely.
Any more? And coming back to you, any more here that sort of strike? Enzo's not going to come back. I don't want Martin O'Neill back. I think he's had his best days. Jesse Marsh, Rafa Benitez, Gary O'Neill at 12-1. If Paddy's still in from the Bournemouth fan, Craig, he's wetting himself with excitement now at Gary O'Neill getting a job back.
There's no one on that list that I think you look at and think sort of.
It's too early for Andy King, isn't it, Anne?
Say that again.
Too early for Andy King.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like he's not even at the stage Enzo was when we took Enzo on, because Enzo had at least 4 or 5 years of being an assistant at top clubs, and he had a little bit of a go at Parma. Andy King's been a coach for a year now, is it?
Yeah. Richie Wellens is a name that a few people in the chat, not tonight, but in the past, have been sort of shouting about. And obviously, he's got the Leicester links. Rafa Benitez, I suppose he can come round and serve you your drinks at half time.
Boring names, boring managers, just because.
Would sell like a drink?
Because fans know these names. I mean,
yeah,
God, this is just. If you actually break these down, I'll do it in about 20 seconds. Gary O'Neill got sacked twice. Everybody said he was unlucky to get sacked twice. Look at Bournemouth since. Look at Wolves since. Okay, let's move on. Richie Wellens, as far as I know, never managed at any serious level. Certainly not anywhere near our level. I've never heard him, particularly when I remember him as a player, particularly being any kind of football visionary, although he was a decent player himself. Andy King, too young. Enzo Maresca, yes, please. But I don't think Chelsea are going to sack him. I think he's going to win the league with Chelsea inside 3 years. Martin O'Neill, my personal favourite of all time as managers. I was a Martin O'Neill era boy. East Stand at the old Philbo. I was Martin O'Neill all the way. I love the man to bits. But no.
I think we all do, but like you say, his time has come and gone.
Yeah, his time has gone. You know, he's probably management days are behind him as well. Chris Davies, no. Chris Wilder, you'd have to bail him out of jail first. Jesse Marsh talks a good game, but sorry, I don't want to be harsh. American managers never really worked in the English game, and the last time he was at Leeds, they were conceding 6 every game, so that's probably not an answer. Phil Parkinson once was a young up-and-coming manager, but has been round the merry-go-round at the lower leagues time after time after time. Save him for Wrexham and whoever else, not for us. Rafa Benitez, only coming for the paycheck, 6-month best. Probably do a decent stabilising job. He'd annoy every player in the house. He would be boring football. It would be like having another Sven. Don't bother.
And I've only got one more slide, and these are only. I've not gone further down in the list. All I've done is pick out 6 that were further down. So they're not the next 6; they're just 6 that were in. And there's some interesting names in here. Eric Ten Hag at 25-1, Cambiasso 28-1, Xavi 40. Sam Allardyce. Now, surely, if you are saying Sean Dyche, you must be getting a little bit excited there with Sam Allardyce being on the list.
Well,
Brendan coming back and Claudio.
A nightmare.
The only one I would look at there is Xavi, but he wouldn't look at us once. So
no.
None of those managers are coming back to us, apart from maybe Esteban at a push, and I don't even think he would come. But I think Esteban again. I don't think he's managed or even been assistant, by the way. Esteban hasn't done that, although he's accumulated a vast amount of football knowledge. I think he might be an interesting assistant if you had somebody suitable to be his manager. So someone he might have a personal relationship with, and we'll come back to that later.
He's been linked a few times, hasn't he? Well, every time we basically sack somebody, he's linked.
He lived next door to my cousin in Stonygate.
Oh, did he? Wow.
He did. A very nice neighbour, apparently.
Well, a lovely man, like you say, and obviously watching him in a Leicester shirt was unbelievable. But yeah, like you say,
very bright man as well.
He hasn't been in football since 2017 when he was at Olympiacos.
Correct.
And hasn't been a manager.
So that concerns me that he's never had the gumption or the desire to start coaching. So I think that's just because, he's a fancy name. He used to play for Leicester. Let's get him on the list. Anybody who sticks their 5s and 10s from the bookies, easy money from the bookies' point of view.
Exactly. So you're sticking with that sort of with the Sean Dyche, are you, Ant?
Yeah. Sorry, my camera's going all over the place, but yeah, I am.
He's that embarrassed he had to take himself off camera, Manny. That embarrassed he was. Let's have a look then at Plan B. Don't know who this might be. The long-term plan, choose an identity and style of play, taking the next weeks to make a short list. If they haven't already, they probably haven't. Approach and employ at the end of the season for me, but have in mind options for replacement so that when he leaves, we're not scrambling around again. We've got a list of people that play the same style so that we can just carry on, which we should have done after Enzo. I'm not going to put your names up yet because I know you want to go through a brief history of modern football.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to decide what manager eventually that you're looking for, I think in order to make a fully rounded, well-educated decision, you need to have a good overview of football history and the way that the game has evolved over the decades and why it's evolved. So I don't want to bore the hell out of everybody listening tonight, and they're probably watching Madrid anyway. But football essentially, let's pick it up from the late 1960s, which was when the first structured system that has a modern influence that still influences today began. So maybe Chris might remember, but Ant might not. There was a Dutch manager called Rinus Michels. He was Ajax manager in the late 60s, and he invented the concept of Dutch total football. Total football is basically your defence plays high up, so you compress the space into the opposition's half. You start pressing your opponent in an intense way, and then when you win the ball, as in you go to the ball, and whoever I leave a space, and one of the other players can then go into that space. So players and positions become interchangeable. The right back could find himself at right wing. He could find himself following the ball and end up being left-sided midfielder. But when he does that, somebody else has to rotate into his slot so you don't leave too many gaps. Dutch total football. Dutch total football was good enough in the 1970s to win you the European Cup for Ajax in 1971, 1972 and 1973. So this new style evolution of football won them 3 European Cups in a row. He became Dutch national manager. They made the final of the World Cups in 74 and 78. They lost to fabulous Gerd Müller and Franz Beckenbauer of the 74 team, and Mario Kempis under an inspired Ozzy Ardiles and some other inspired players under the 1978 in the background of the military junta that was running Argentina at the time. But the Dutch football was the latest iteration, the latest style, and teams didn't really know how to deal with that. So let's move on. So the 1980s was slightly different. By that time, Johan Cruyff, who was the main player and follower of Rinus Michels' football, was retiring at the back end of his career. And we reached an era where we had some mega star players, the rise of Maradona in particular. Still think he's the best player of all time, by the way. That's for another day. You had other great players like Zico, Platini, Gires, Ruud Gullit later in the decade, Frank Rijkaard, Marco van Basten. But lots of superb influence, individual players on horrible pitches where you could still hack. 1990s, Barcelona have had enough of getting nowhere for decades. They bring Johan Cruyff in as their manager. He brings total football with him. Retrains Barcelona. So they did the things that we just spoke about before. Every single youth team at Barcelona has to play this new way. Every single team, including the first team, is designed to play this way. And Pep Guardiola was a young product of that system himself. Was a good player. He becomes to be the manager. Now, at the time, that particular style didn't really dominate football in the early 90s. There was another style of football. Some people might remember Arrigo Sacchi, the Milan manager of the early 90s, Fabio Capello too. And these Italians played traditional Italian football, which was defend, kick the shit out of you, nick a goal with a bit of magic from a brilliant flair player like a Roberto Baggio or Salvatore Scalacci or one of those. So there was a fight begins in world football, defensive football versus this total football. As Pep then becomes manager, Madrid start increasing the quality of their own play. With the rise of Madrid, football evolves into the Messi versus Ronaldo era. Messi, tiki-taka. Ronaldo, I call it, what do I call it? PFT. Pacey, press, and then fast transition. You wait till the opposition get the ball into the tiki-taki zone of the centre. You press the shit out of them. As soon as you win the ball, you attack with extreme speed. So it became tiki-taka of Iniesta, Xavi, Messi versus Ronaldo, Bale, Benzema. Choose your poison. One way, a tug of war starts developing. So 1 minute, tiki-taka's winning. The next season, maybe Ronaldo's Real Madrid will win. Now that actually continued into the Premier League as Pep came over to the Premier League after Bayern, And Klopp, on a limited budget, thinks, well, how do I compete against tiki-taka football? I have to press them the high as possible, where they have smaller numbers, and attack the spaces, particularly out wide areas. So where you would normally have a left back or a right back, tiki-taka style has 3 centre backs, so there's space. And there's no coincidence that Mo Salah and Sané were two the highest quality pacey wingers who are able to exploit the spaces left by the tiki-taka system. So we are in a phase right now where you choose your poison. Do you want to play possession and say this is the most effective way football can be played? And before you, I could easily point out, Bayern Munich and Victor Kompany, Xavi's Barcelona, Spain national teams winning things, Arteta and Pep in the Premier League, Brighton in the Premier League playing it to get you to mid-table. So it doesn't exclusively just sort of win you leagues and put you in there. It gets Brighton to mid-table, taking them to Europe as well. So it's not just the Sean Dyche way that can get you into Europe. Tiki-taka can get you into Europe. Tiki-taka was good enough to win us the championship too. So choose your way that you want to play. Once you've chosen, in the end, the 90s style of football that I was used to, Tony Pulis, Big Sam, Dave Bassett, peaked with Wimbledon winning the FA Cup in, 88? And Greece winning the Euros in 2004. They are the best examples at the most extreme end of that system getting you to the best prizes they can do. The reason why Dyche never got a job bigger than the Everton one, despite taking Burnley to Europe, is because nobody wants to see that style, because it's boring. Because if you teach your kids and your youth teams to play that football, you're not going to attract very good quality kids, because nobody wants to play that way in the academy era. Everybody wants to play fast, technical football. Kids have grown up watching Messi and Ronaldo. They didn't grow up watching Ian Ormondroyd or Peter Crouch or any of these lumps. By the way, if I said to you that you wanted to play Dyche ball, you need Dyche players, right? So
Yep.
Who is this? We need a big lump of a striker. Name me 3 big lumps who might be on your... lump's a bit harsh, okay? But it is. He's like Chris Woods or Wout Weghorst. Who are these players in the modern age that we're going to be buying, by the way? I can't think of many of those kind of players. They don't exist anymore. It's gone, So I would say, if you want to progress as a club, identify what your style is. And I can see it both ways. Enzo will work. Counter-attack will work. Counter-attack, fast transition play will probably be more effective in the Premier League to keep you up. So that is probably the way I would go to. And previously, when we had our most successful era, we had a counter-attacking team that won the Premier League, kept up, won the Premier League, and then through Puel and Brendan, and over a number of years of slowly recruiting high-quality players, we managed to evolve the team and slowly build it up to being a possession-based team, which also won us a trophy, the FA Cup. So Leicester City are a unique club because we've won the Premier League playing counter-attack, and we've won the FA Cup playing possession. So for a club our size, we've actually had the full spectrum. We know that those two ways for our club actually work. They win you the championship. They do win you trophies in the big league. They compete you at the highest level. Dyche way of football, one team that plays it was Everton. They got bored of it after 2 years. They wanted it out. And what are you left with after he's gone? Now, I know Daniel O'Connor sometimes in the chat, there's some other Everton fans that say, we're not shaping up too badly. But look at their squad compared to, a more progressive squad. They are still going to have to transition that squad if they want to evolve it. And that's probably why they've picked David Moyes, because he's more used to handling a lot of their defensive elements. For example, they've got Jake O'Brien, a 6'6", playing at right back. That's not an attacking forward right back, but he is a rock solid right back. It's a choice. Now, that's not a choice that I like aesthetically. I have seen enough football over the decades to know what I want. It's one of two things for sure. Choose which one. I'm happy with both. One thing I definitely don't want is old school, archaic football that would probably get you up. It might keep you up. But every single year, I'll guarantee you one thing. The best you'll ever achieve is a regular relegation battle. The days when Burnley did finish 7th was before clubs like Fulham, Brentford, Bournemouth, Villa, Newcastle, Forest, all got their act together and smartened up. That was when there are opportunities. Those opportunities are even far and fewer between. So identify your style, put that in place, find a manager who specialises in that style, buy players to suit that style. And then when the manager goes, whether he goes like an Enzo because he did really well and a bigger club wants him, plug him out, you plug the next guy in, he plays the same way. Not 1 minute it's Cooper who plays this way, then it's Ruud who plays this way, then it's Dyche that plays that way, but then when Dyche goes it'll be another. Who can replicate Dyche ball?
The one thing I'll say, you said that no sort of defensive manager like Dyche has been successful recently. I'd like to look up David Moyes with West Ham, because I think there's a lot of elements there are very similar. And obviously they won the Conference League. They've gone massively backwards since they've gone for Graham Potter, who's a progressive manager. Obviously they had...
Progressive, he's not progressive. That's incorrect with Potter. It's a misnomer that he's progressive. He managed a progressive club who had progressive elements about them. Potter didn't buy any players for Brighton, I promise you that. And
I know he didn't, but you look at his Swansea team as well, and I talked to a Swansea fan when we were linked to him in the summer. His play style was still very progressive, front foot and possession based. So yes, maybe that the players coming in at Brighton were obviously Tony Bloom and how they're recruited, but his play style was the reason that he was brought in at Brighton, because they reached that ceiling that you mentioned under Chris Hughton, and they wanted to progress with Graham Potter. He wasn't just a name plucked out of a hat to do it. Obviously, he does have those fundamental ideas.
I'm sure I'm not breaking any confidences here, but I could tell you a true story. My accountant is Brighton's accountant. We share the same accountant. He's also on the board of directors at Brighton, still is today. When Graham Potter was being linked with Chelsea, I went to visit him to his office, and we always chit chat about football, as we do. I know for a fact that they were more than happy to lose Graham Potter because they already had De Zerbi in their mind, and from their point of view, I think they were going to get rid of Potter anyway. And the fact that they managed to get £15 million for him and his backroom staff and replaced him with De Zerbi, and you saw an uptick in performance after he left, was telling.
I'm sorry, there's one thing I cannot believe, sorry, Manny, and is that they were about to get rid of him because they were sitting fourth.
I didn't say about, I said in the summer they were going to get rid of him. They were going to replace him.
Because they were sitting fourth in the Premier League at the time because they just busted up.
In the summer, they were going to move him on.
That's fair enough, but at the time they were fourth in the league. But that's more of the structure of Brighton being fantastic, having contingency plans, and whether that's like, and I know you're against Sean Dyche or anyone like that, but if we are to employ someone like Sean Dyche, there should be a contingency plan for if he goes. That's
I'll tell you what, let's fast forward to that micro scenario that you just mentioned. So for whatever reason, like happened at Burnley, like has just happened at Everton, Dyche reaches his expiry date for his time at Leicester City. So what do we appoint after Dyche is gone? What do we do then?
Well, obviously, it depends what situation we're in.
Just want a caveat. Just remember, we've got a bunch of players suited now to play direct, long ball, compete for your second ball, that kind of way of football. So who's going to pick up with those players and do what with them? Repeat Dyche ball or try and transform that team into a more progressive team? What are we doing at that stage?
It depends it's very difficult just to say a name, isn't it? Because you don't know what the scenario or situation will be. So if you're a Premier League club, then you're looking at a different pool of managers compared to if you're a Championship club. But what it should be for me... Oh, please let me finish. But what it should be is someone who has got those principles, whether that's someone like Enzo Maresca, where he was almost moneyballed in, but the fact that you knew that he was going to play that style. And then, obviously, we saw with Steve Cooper that we went completely backwards with someone without any of those principles. It's just got to be someone with the same principles who's going to build on and keep moving forward of what Sean Dyche has done. It's very hard to say a name, but you could also say, because you mentioned Danny Roll earlier, what happens if Danny Roll comes in 3 years' time, goes? It's very hard to mention a name of 3 years' time because you don't know what the shape of we're going to be in and sort of what managers are going to be about. But whoever, and this is what I keep saying, whoever comes in, it's got to be looked at as a long term. This is a direction.
So
we're
long
going
term, you would like Leicester to play basically long ball.
I think that you're sort of discrediting a bit of what Dyche was about. If you look at his teams in the Championship, they were some of the most front foot attacking teams when he had some of the better players. But it's like Thomas Frank is the example that I would use. But you could very easily label his team just a long ball team. But if Thomas Frank goes now, do Brentford just screw up everything that he's done? Or do they find someone who's got a lot of the principles of what Thomas Frank has built in terms of using the strengths of that squad, being very direct at times? Or do they just start from square one again? Because I guarantee they'll probably, when Thomas Frank does go, the manager they bring in will not be a household name.
No, like Thomas Frank was, like none of Brighton's were. Actually,
Yeah.
Brentford and Brighton have a lot of similarities in the way they approach things. And the chairmen are very similar characters and individuals. I've been to a keynote speech of Matthew Benham's, the Brentford chairman's extremely bright young man. And he will already know what will happen post Thomas Frank. He'll already have minimum 3 names at his idea that, okay, if Frank goes, this is my first choice, second choice, third choice. Already, that homework was done a long time ago.
That should be the case, though, for us. If we do bring in Dyche, there should already be 3 names beyond that.
But that just means perennially we're playing a similar way to Sean Dyche. And in my 35 years of football, I cannot say to you, after watching 35 years of football, that my conclusion at the end of it is I would like my team to smack it long to a target man most of the time, or play almost rugby territorial football and just be, try to be as effective as you can at set pieces, try to be robust, No, my team won the Premier League. My team won the FA Cup. My team played in Europe consistently for a period. We had some unbelievable high quality of players. Once upon a time we had Wesley Fofana and N'Golo Kante. I don't want to go to James Tarkowski. James Tarkowski is a solid Premier League centre back. But then I'll give you a case in point. Dean Howson, who's 18 years old, who's Bournemouth centre back, is not a solid Premier League centre back. They cost similar amounts of money. I think Dean Howson was cheaper. But I will take the younger, more cultured option over the does what it says on the tin. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's also, I think then that also, so with our title winning back four, that's does what it says on the tin. There's nothing flash about that at all.
If you have extreme quality in your attacking areas and a DM who can play the roles of 2 players, then you can achieve unbelievable things. But why didn't Sean Dyche, post getting Burnley to 7th in Europe, get a crack at a club, all those umpteen would get a crack at Tottenham, Everton before they gave it to him, umpteen other clubs who were looking? It's because also they understand that we're in the entertainment business as well. And if you're Burnley with a tiny budget and a crowd of 18, 20,000 and it's freezing cold in the winter, your template is Tony Pulis, Big Sam. That's the way that you have to compete. You have a small budget. You can't go toe-to-toe, technically, with these bigger teams because they'll just beat you on quality. However, Leicester City, historically, are much bigger than Burnley. Much bigger budget. Our training ground is chalk and cheese. Our crowd size is about to be increased to 40,000 the next few years, should we continue. Historically, Burnley won things in the early 1900s, I think. Maybe the 10s and 20s. But in modern day era, Leicester City, since the Premier League started in 1992, are the 6th most successful club in the country. Number 6 on the list. I think Dyche shows a lack of ambition. It shows that we want to emulate Burnley. I don't want to emulate Burnley or anything about Burnley. I want to emulate ourselves because we were the greatest story that's ever been told.
We were, but I do think, like with the Burnley stuff with Dyche, I do hear what you mean of no bigger club going for him, and I do think there is a ceiling with Sean Dyche. But and I hate to use him as an example, but like you look at Forest this season, they've very much been a direct team, a team that's counter-attacking up to the big man, and they're absolutely flying. And it's like,
There's a key difference, though.
Sorry, go on, Matt.
There's a cute difference between the two, though. It's similar, but it's not the same. The difference being the choice of your wingers. So whereas Dyche might choose a Robbie Brady or a Dwight McNeil, he wants deliveries aerially to that big man. So whether he's picking up short or he actually gets in a crossing situation, he is playing aerial challenge football. The difference is Nuno, his job is get it to Wood, but his job is to find the fast, quick, floor, pacey wingers.
To be fair,
it's a preference.
Dyche did try that, didn't he? Was it Maxwell Cornet and
yeah, and he
Dwight
signed
McNeil?
Ndiaye. He signed Ndiaye, I think, in the summer, who is a really good player. So I think Dyche should probably sit here if he was on this chat saying, "Look, I've never had anything but a Burnley. Once I was given Everton, I didn't have any money at Everton. When I did get a bit of money, I tried to progress the team." And Moyes will say, for West Ham, I tried to progress the team. And Moyes can turn around and say, I won a European trophy, stick that up, whatever. But the consistent element with both of them is that fans get sick of it pretty damn quickly.
But to be fair, our fans get pretty sick of possession football very quickly.
So how quickly will they get sick of that crap once we just start lumping it to the long man again? Honestly, this is the problem people always make in life. They always think the grass is greener with something else. Like, this is boring, let's try something completely different. You forget that it can get worse. Life can always get worse. People always think that it can't. Oh, yes, it can.
We said earlier, didn't we, on Loxy's show, 17 points clear of the championship, and everybody was moaning about being boring. Let me just come back in, if I can. I mean, I could just sit here all night and listen to you two, but I'm conscious of the time. Were you saying about Burnley's training ground or Bournemouth's training ground?
No, Burnley's training ground means that it puts them in a category of club that it's a hard sell for you to get progressive technical players because you don't have the facilities, you don't have it within your culture to play there. Bournemouth is slightly different because, dare I say it, Bournemouth is on the south coast. It's much closer to London, so if you're a foreign player, you're more likely to get a train back to London so you can jump on the Eurostar and get back to the mainland Europe. You're a shorter flight time if you want to, and if you really want to, you can jump on the boat and get to Spain, France, different places. Have you been to Bournemouth? It's a pretty nice place, actually.
It is that. Well, I live just outside Bournemouth, and I have to say,
good beaches in Bournemouth. What are the beaches like in Burnley? Sorry, Burnley. But
I also lived in Burnley for 20 years, so. But
you tell me. How would you compare the two beaches?
I left Burnley to come to Bournemouth. I'll leave it at that. But all I will say is Bournemouth actually now, with their new American owner, their new training ground, which was going to be where Poole Town had their pitch, but it all fell through. Their training ground is going to be as good as ours. It's almost exactly the same up at Canford Heath. It's going to be an amazing place. Obviously, looking at the time, these are the names that you gave me earlier. Merlin Polson, maybe he can come in and work out his magic.
The wizard.
Manager Hamburg. Carlos Vincent, he's 42, but older. He's assistant manager at Manchester City. And he was mentioned a lot in Loxy's show early. Willie Caballero, 43, assistant manager at Chelsea. Talk us through those three, and if you want to come in, Ant, and any of them, please do.
Now, these three managers play two different ways. So Carlos Vicens and Willie Caballero play exactly the same way. They play the same as Enzo. They play the same as Pep. They play the same. Arteta has a slight variation. Company, I think, plays the same way, although I don't watch Bayern enough to know. But Merlin Polson is different. It's slightly out of the box. For those of you who don't know, he's 34 years old. He's manager of Hamburger SV. And for those of you who play a bit of Championship Manager or Football Manager or whatever it's called these days, it's a Bundesliga team. A bit of a history of a yo-yo team. Sometimes they're in Bundesliga 1, sometimes they drop down to 2. This guy's always been a coach, a young coach, assistant manager. He had to retire early as a player. I don't know if it was by injury or he wasn't good enough, but he's been coaching for quite a few years and has been caretaker coach of Hamburger multiple times until December, when they finally gave him the Bundesliga B job just before Christmas. He's taken the club. He's only managed 16 games for them. He's only managed 16 games full stop. But what he's done is transform that club into a high press, numbers forward, attacking wide spaces. It's not Enzo ball, it's not Pep ball, it's not focused so much on a possession, but it's really focused on a very high press. So if you think about the Brighton game we just played at the weekend, think about how advanced we were when we were winning the ball back, that we were actually trying to press in 2s and 3s. That's the kind of way that they do. He actually plays, if you're looking at a formation, I would probably summarise it as a 3-2-5 or a 3-3-4. So it's lots of making uses of touchline wingers, similar to using 8 channels, but it's a variation on the way that they would play. Not so much focus on your possession, but when the opposition have the ball in a defensive area, we're not going to give them time to breathe. We're going to strangle them immediately. And then from the strangles, we'll get chances. It's an example of a young manager who's about to manage in the Bundesliga next year. And before people say 34, that's a bit young. Well, Julian Nagelsmann was 33 when he got the Bayern job. He's currently manager of the national team. Fabian Hertzler was 31. He gets the Brighton job, doing a good job as well. I think young managers have grown up familiar with the tug of war between possession and transition. And if you are a certain type of manager, like a De Zerbi or a Francisco Farioli, the current Ajax manager, Ajax are going to win the league. He is a disciple of De Zerbi, who is a disciple of Pep. So there's this ever-growing battle between the next generation of European managers, European, by the way, not English, European, who are at the elite level, are deciding, I'm going to treat it this way, and I'm going to counter that way of football. Again, it's tiki-taka versus, what did I call it? Pacey fast transition, PFT. Not PST, PFT. So this is actually playing around Europe in the major leagues, and I think the astutest of owners are aware of this, which is why Brighton have consistently picked the possession choice, whether it's De Zerbi, Hertzler, Potter to some extent before that, was after Chris Hughton. They managed to stay up, they managed to add quality, and now they're evolving into a consistent possession-based team. Brentford, who Ant mentioned, have gone a slightly different route, a more direct route, a more robust route, a focus on set pieces, but they retain the pacey fast element, which is why Mbuemo and Visser are two absolutely vital players for them. Extremely quick, extremely mobile, rapid, excellent players. But also Kevin Schade on the left-hand side, technically good, quick. They've gone a different route. So, again, the common theme is these teams that have usurped us, that we used to be way better than. Your Fulhams, your Bournemouths, your Brightons, your whoever else you want to pick. Emery, Newcastle, again, a high press, attack with energy, win the ball up high, attack. All of these teams are playing slight variations of either one of two styles. Neither of them is the Dyche style. Dyche is forever limited to I could say 15th to 20th. 15th is on a good year, 20th on a bad year. And to be fair, he has kept Everton up. But in my memory, Everton have never gone down. I don't think they ever have. So everybody keeps Everton up. Whether you're Frank Lampard, Carlo Ancelotti, Sean Dyche, Joe Royle back in the day, David Moyes, they always keep Everton up. So I don't think that is a sterling achievement, since nobody's actually managed to take them down. So I wouldn't use that as a great example of why I would want Dyche. You can go up playing all kinds of ways. Enzo took us up. I was going to say Scott Carson. It's not Scott Carson. It's Scott. Sorry, here's the Burnley manager now. Scott Parker, sorry. He's taking Burnley up just like Sean Dyche did. Burnley have money. They have parachute payments. They have some pull in that league. And other managers can keep you up. And before it turns into a big old rant, if I do try and think about modern day managers who play a similar kind of way, Chris Wilder is a name that comes into my head. So they did do something clever with three centre backs kind of playing in wide areas, and they finished 7th or 8th first season, I think it was, when Chris Wilder took them up. Second season, dog shit, but rock bottom, never recovered, and then now they're in that yo-yo phase. They've gone back to Wilder, and it's getting you so far. But I promise you, they're in a perennial yo-yo situation because you have to break free of this mindset of we've just got to stay up. Staying up is everything. Staying up is not everything. It's staying up and building upon it is everything.
Ant, your thoughts on any of those three?
Again, I don't know enough about any of them, to be fair, but it's
The
more
other
of a
two,
principle. It's more of a principle of what Manny was saying, which I completely agree with, particularly with the German lad. And
I'll
who I'm
quickly
not
Yeah,
just
sure.
go
let
through
it
the other two if
convert,
I can.
Manny. You're converting us all.
Yeah, look, the other two I mentioned is because look, not so long ago we needed a new manager. Somebody has the bright idea to find Pep's assistant and say, look, he looks a pretty clever acquisition. Let's get him, and we did. And they just won a treble, a European treble, which he left to join a championship club in Leicester City. So I'm not worried about assistant managers leaving big Premier League teams to come to us because we already did it when they were as high as they could get. So Carlos Vicens is just a repetition of Enzo. He's another assistant manager of Pep. He's been there 3-4 years. He knows the system inside out. He would just pick up where Enzo left off. You'd feel like there was minimal change. So what we were doing was working. We saw at the weekend what Enzo Ball can still do with this Leicester City team. And Willy Caballero was actually my first choice because he was, not only has he been brought up under Pep, played for Man City, he's also played under Ancelotti a long time ago at Chelsea. He's played under Conte at Chelsea. He was Enzo's a choice of assistant. He's actually lived in Leicester for a year, been at Leicester for a year, knows all the squad. So he knows our club. He knows the backroom staff. He knows the fans. He knows King Power. He knows Seagrave. He knows everything about this club. He's been there for a full year. If we could get him to do what Enzo did to Pep, stab him in the back, get your own job, make your own way in life, I think that is more logical than going to experienced Cooper who can keep the team up. Well, it didn't bloody work out pretty well, did it? What I would have wanted to do is just get somebody in. This, what I keep talking about is the continuity. So we have the style of football. Enzo goes. We have the next person lined up who can plug right in. And the reason I would choose someone like Caballero or Vicens above somebody like Fabian Hertzler, who Brighton do to some extent, is because I like the thought that the disciple has been taught by the grand Jedi Master himself. You know, the guy who actually evolved Johan Cruyff's style and turned total football into tiki-taka. And the main difference between total football and tiki-taka is total football is the players become interchangeable. Tiki-taka, they aren't. The tiki-taka, the players stay in a more rigid formation and you have to basically keep moving the ball until you find a space. You're trying to create overloads in certain places. It's a different way of playing chess. So, yeah, without going on about it too much, I actually think if I had my just freedom to make a personal choice, having gone on for about all this culture, but I can't decide between the two because in the Championship we're going to face deep blocks. Deep blocks doesn't suit a counter-attacking transitional team because they won't even try and attack you because you were playing Plymouth at home. They're expecting to get spanked, so they're not going to play that way. So counter-attack is a little bit pointless because you're going to be forced to dominate the ball. So you need to have that element of being able to be used to having possession. But when you get to the big boys league, that possession is going to be much harder to translate unless you really have found a brilliant set of players who are really fast.
I think the one thing that we've come out of and agreeing on here is whoever we get in as manager, we need to have the next one, not lined up, but an idea of who we're going for. And look, with assistant managers, their next move, if they are ambitious in any form at all, should be to get a manager's job. And some of the best managers out there have gone to second tier, third tier clubs to start their journey.
And can I just make a quickly, let me throw something at you two. Let me ask you something. Willy Caballero, Argentinian, speaks fluent English, been living in England for a decade, with Esteban Cambiaso as his fellow Argentinian assistant. Between those two names, who are still names, but Esteban is a very respected name in Argentinian football, we suddenly get 2 or 3 under-21 Argentinian super kids, 1 or 2 on loan. 1 or 2 of them are like, yeah, I'll go to England to play for those 2 Argentinians. And that would be pretty damn cool.
Yeah, that would be off the scale. It really, really would. And actually, as you say there, with Willie, I can never say his surname. So
Caballero.
That way I don't want him to get the job because I'll never be able to mention his name. But I do want him to have the job. He probably would, having talked about everything today, excuse me, be my choice, because like you say, it would be just like putting an old shoe on. You know, he knows the club, he knows the setup, etc., etc. So there's so many advantages. Guys, like I say, though, the thing that we've agreed on is that we need a plan, not this there, oh, somebody's left us, because we're always going to get that with Leicester. There's always bigger fish out there. And if you're going to succeed with
you can't be afraid of not signing somebody because you're worried about them being too successful and they might leave you. Do you sign a player thinking, there's no point in signing Lionel Messi at 15 because he'll just bugger off for you? You have him for a year, you sell them on because somebody's paying you compensation to take you off their hands, you repeat the process.
Indeed. And before we go, look, I've put the link up there and they can find you on X. Say what you're doing, how you're getting covered in mud. It might just be a fantasy of yours to have a mud fight, I don't know, but tell us all about it.
So in aid of Prostate Cancer UK, I am trying to raise £1,000 by running the Tough Mudder in, I believe it's June 15th, because prostate cancer is what I lost my granddad and my uncle through. So it's something that's close to my heart. So trying to earn as much as I can for a fantastic charity.
Get out there and support him. Where can people find all the details on X? What's your link on X?
So just ant_lcfc.
Brilliant. Manny, thank you so much, mate. Eloquently put across. Where can people find you?
Oh, I don't really bother with X too much. I just find it a bit. I haven't got time to keep checking it all day, every day, so I rarely bother with it. You can usually find me on Blue Tinted Glasses, where I'm talking probably a lot of rubbish, but maybe there might be some sense in there in between the rubbish.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it's been an awful bloody season, so these kind of debates are really, really good to have it out between us, because I think, I don't want to sound cocky, but I feel like the fan base still needs to play a bit of catch up in terms of education about football, wider things, and I think us having these debates and getting them out there, getting other people's point of view is always really healthy. And this is a microcosm of what should be happening internally at the club, right? A boardroom level. They should be having these kind of debates between them. So maybe even someone might be listening. If you are, give me a call.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys. I'll let you go. It's a bit of a late one tonight. Look forward to having you both on again soon. All the best, guys. Take care, and thanks very much. He says, and he'll press the right button, and there I am. So thanks very much to Manny. Thanks very much to Ant. Go and support Ant, and you can always find Manny on Blue Tinted Glasses, usually having an argument with somebody, but he does do his points well. Thank you very, very much. Be sure to like the video, share it. Cheers, Ant. Like the video, share it. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and click that notification bell. And if you have been listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very, very much. Really do appreciate it. And we'll be back tomorrow with the prediction show. Take care. Good night.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.